Hey everybody, my name is Mike Petralia, Trags, back with the latest installment of the Jungle Roar Pod here on the CLNS Media Network. My pleasure to welcome back a former colleague and also current CLNS contributor, Alex Barth, the one and only Alex Barth of 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston. Why Boston, you say? Well, we'll get to that in a few moments. This podcast is brought to you, of course, by our friends at Prize Picks and the Game Time app. All right, Alex, this is a crazy time of year. It always is. After free agency is done, we catch our breath for maybe a week. Not for guys like you who are writing up mock after mock after mock. But for someone like me, I'm trying to, I'm old. I'm trying to catch my breath and then gear up for all of the mock drafts, all of the scouting combines, the pro days, and whatnot that both the colleges have, the conferences have, and the pro visits, the 30 pro visits that each NFL team gets to interview some of the potential draft picks that they might be considering. For you, it is a time to do the aforementioned mock draft. You have a great one up on 98.5 thesportshub.com in Boston. And I'm going to go to number 17. That's where the Cincinnati Bengals are picking. And you have them, you mock them taking edge Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. I like this pick for the Bengals for a number of different reasons. Let me read the audience what you wrote on Shamar Stewart. With Trey Hendrickson's status up in the air, the Bengals cannot afford to potentially lose him without having a replacement in place. Worst case scenario, Stewart could replace Hendrickson as the lead pass rusher. Best case scenario, the Bengals have a strong 1-2 punch off the edge on a defense that projects to find itself in plenty of shootouts. I think that's for a guy that's not here in Cincinnati. I think that's pretty much spot on.
Well, I'm a little more in tune with Cincinnati than some of the other teams, so you can kind of tell where my friends are working in the football world by how in depth I go on each pick.
I appreciate that, Alex Barth. You are you're very right about that. But Shamar Stewart, what is it about Shamar Stewart that stands out to you?
I think he just has that upside to be like a lead pass rusher guy you can build that thing around. And I think he has the kind of aggression and tenacity that's going to play well in the Bengals defense. That's frankly going to play well in the AFC North. Mm-hmm. There were a couple players I considered for the Bengals here. Shamar Stewart was one. Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, was another. I actually had them taking him in my first NFL mock draft of the year, and I considered Kenneth Grant from Michigan as well. They all kind of are tone setters up front. They're all guys that can get after the quarterback. I also honestly seriously considered having the Bengals move back. They've got all this money tied up now in just a few players, so they're going to need multiple shots at this thing.
They only have 6 draft picks, Alex.
And they only have six draft picks. So they're a team that's a strong trade back candidate, and I was kind of planning on it as I went, and then just kind of as it was going, Shamar Stewart still being there at 17. Like I try to let the draft go as it goes when I put this together and not, I know what I'm gonna do for the Patriots, but it's like, all right, I won't not take a player with one team because I think he's a better fit later on. Right. It's like, well, no, if he goes here, he goes here. And so as I'm going with the Bengals, I'm like, all right, what do I want to do with Cincinnati? Shamar Stewart's still on the board. Trey Hendrickson, is in doubt. So it's between him and Kenneth Grant. And I ended up going with him.
Okay, let's talk about Trey Hendrickson because there were reports last week and there was a report over the weekend about Trey Hendrickson, other teams being interested over the weekend. It was the San Francisco 49ers maybe putting together a bid to make a rush and have him join Nick Bosa in San Francisco. That would kind of make sense, obviously there as a 1-2 punch. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers are rebuilding after a very disappointing and stunningly down year for them in 2024. Then there are the New England Patriots. I find them fascinating, at least on defense, for this reason. Mike Vrabel seems to have been able to come in right away, set a tone with what he wants to do on defense, kind of overhaul that roster a little bit. And I want you to tell our audience what Mike Vrabel has been able to do so far, especially as it pertains to defense, and what kind of personnel and why a guy like Trey Hendrickson might make sense in New England as a trade partner.
So they're overhauling this defense. The 3-4-2 gapping thing that we've seen for years in New England that you covered, Trags, seems like that's on its way out. Elliot Wolf was on with Mike Felger of 98.5 The Sports Hub last week and said they're still going to do some of that, but they're getting smaller, they're getting quicker, they're getting more athletic, putting more of a premium. Belichick always put a premium on versatility, but kind of in a different way. Instead of one guy that can play multiple positions, it feels like they're going out and getting guys that can handle multiple assignments from the same position. They've brought in multiple guys like that, and they have really overhauled the personnel quite a bit. They brought in Carlton Davis, so between him and Gonzalez, feels like they're going to corner. They signed multiple linebackers. They made multiple investments at defensive tackle. They have brought in edge rushers. They brought in Harold Landry from Tennessee and Kayvon Chason from the Raiders. But the one, like Milton Williams, that's a stud in the middle, him and Christian Barmore, right?
Yeah.
They bring in Robert Spillane. It does feel like he's going to kind of be their big-time linebacker. They got those two big-time corners, Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers returning at safety. They have some really good complementary edge rushers, but I don't know that they have the guy that is going to dictate opposing blocking schemes and things like that. So if you plug Trey Hendrickson, who brings that athleticism and that nastiness to the game, and in that sense fits Brable, and you plug him in here where now it's Landry and Chason and Anthony Jennings rushing off of him, rushing off of his opposite side, like he would be. I had Abdul Carter going fourth in my mock draft.
I see that.
The same thing. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, would like to see the Patriots' last big move of the offseason come on offense after they were so defense heavy in free agency. But man, you put a guy like Trey Hendrickson who can dictate a pass rush into what they've already built on defense, and you're talking about a unit that could realistically be top 5 in the league. So are the Patriots willing to, what's he going to cost? Are the Patriots willing to spend that? But they haven't been afraid of adding older players to this unit, even as they rebuild. They haven't been afraid about, being aggressive and spending money. It's just a matter of would they make the trade?
I think here's what I'm pretty sure in talking to certain people around the Bengals organization and inside the organization, they would be looking for 2 premium draft picks, maybe a first and a third, and a player back in return. The player back in return, Alex, is a big deal because right now the Bengals don't have enough players to rotate in and out. Yes, they re-signed Joseph Osai for a year. They're bringing back Cam Sample for a year. Okay, that's all fine, well and good. They have Miles Murphy, who's been a disappointment, certainly a definitive disappointment as a first-round pick back in 2023. He has not lived up to standards, and they are expecting him to take a next step, but that's, of course, not guaranteed. Then you have Trey Hendrickson. And obviously Sam Hubbard retired. The Bengals need bodies at that position. Yes, they're going to draft one. There's no question about that. But I think coming back, you would want someone from the Patriots who could step into that role and contribute right away as an established veteran. Give me a name off the Patriots roster right off the top of your head as I ramble here. I'm giving you time to think. That might be able to come in and fill that need.
At that position, it's tough because everybody they just signed. They had nobody last year on the pass rush. I mean, it was different guys coming up essentially from the practice squad every week and playing that role after they traded Matthew Judon. They traded Joshua Uche. Some guys were hurt. Like, they're not going to move Keon White. I think they really like him. Again, Chason they just signed. Harold Landry they just signed. I guess maybe Jelani Tavai, who's kind of a hybrid off-ball linebacker edge setter.
See, okay, let me stop you there. The reason that's intriguing is the Bengals are, of course, going through it with Jermaine Pratt, who has requested a trade from the Bengals because, he is not fitting in with the Bengals scheme. He wants more money, obviously. Logan Wilson is an established veteran, a core piece of what the Bengals do on defense. He is not going anywhere, even more in particular, given the fact that they've brought back Al Golden, the defensive coordinator from Notre Dame, who was the linebackers coach with the Bengals in 2020 and 2021. That is all the more reason to keep a guy like Logan Wilson. But if Jelani Tavai, thank you, is a player who, if I'm the Bengals, I could see him coming in and contributing right away.
Yeah, I could see the Patriots moving him. They're kind of so. Tavai was drafted by the Lions. They played him off the ball. He's a second-round pick, and it just really didn't work. When Bill Belichick brought him to New England, he started playing him on the edge as kind of like a strong side edge setter, and he thrived in that role. Last year, Juwan Bentley gets hurt. They moved Tavai off the ball, and he struggled once again. I don't think that's as much his position. He can do it, but not as he can't play it as well as he can play the edge.
Right.
And then late in the year, there was an incident where he kind of got into it with the fans during a radio interview.
I do remember this. Yes.
Led to some people thinking like, Mike Vrabel's trying to set this tone, this new energy in the building. And he had said in his introductory press conference, we're going to remove entitlement from our football team. And a lot of people kind of interpreted that as directed as Jelani Tavai. Well, Juwan Bentley, longtime captain, big-time Patriots guy, team first guy, he got cut. David Andrews, longtime captain, longtime team first guy, he got cut. Jelani Tavai is still here. So some people, it's tough to tell what to make of that, but if the Patriots can get a guy like Trey Hendrickson, I think that he's somebody that they absolutely should put on the table.
Well, absolutely. And if you're the Bengals, you want another, as I said, the Bengals need bodies, experienced NFL bodies, not depending entirely on rookies to get the job done. We're talking with Alex Barth, does a tremendous job covering the NFL and the NFL mock draft for 2025 for 98.5, thesportshub.com in Boston. Well, I want to tell you about Game Time. It's the best way to secure online tickets to great events. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff, so it shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. What do I love about it? Well, a couple of things. Let me tell you about three things. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout, and we all know how we hate surprise fees on tickets when you buy them, certainly online. They can eliminate that altogether. That's great. How about seat views? Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy them. And the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you up to 110% of the difference with that lowest price guarantee. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. Back with Game Time. And you know
that's
that
how we do it on
very
Patriot
well.
Beat.
Yes. By the way, the Patriots podcast that you host on the CLNS Media Network.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Beat. Yep.
Patriots Beat.
Patriots
on the
Beat.
CLNS.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just
So anybody
an episode. So.
Well, I want people who are loyal consumers of the Jungle Roar podcast, following the Cincinnati Bengals. Please hit up Patriots Beat. It's the podcast that I used to host with the one and only Alex Barth. So I would like to do Alex a solid there. All right, back to talking Bengals, and in this particular case, the New England Patriots, and how it applies to what the Bengals might be doing with their defense going forward. Al Golden, he has his principles in mind. He's coming back to Cincinnati after a couple of years in Notre Dame. And now he has to instill a new attitude. Certainly he's going to do things a little bit different than Lou Anarumo. What do you think, if you were Al Golden and you saw what the Patriots are doing with their defense, really essentially overhauling it, what kind of features do you think Al Golden could take from the New England Patriots and maybe apply it on a general scale, of course, to the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, I have to familiarize myself with the Bengals personnel a little bit, but I think the big thing is just getting smaller. And now it's tough, right? So the Patriots are getting smaller and quicker defensively. Can you do that in the AFC North, where you have a team like the Ravens that run the ball like they do, and you have a team like the Steelers that's probably going to run the ball quite a bit, right? So I think it's looking at that division. I think something we've seen around the league that the Patriots are embracing is that elite cornerback duo, and not just, all right, we have our one guy and then we'll figure it out with everybody else, but really finding two strong players to play on the boundary and force everything to the middle of the field. That feels like it's been a bit of a trend. I know the Bengals had some success doing some things like that in more of a zone context than man under Lou Anarumo when they faced Patrick Mahomes. So maybe that carries over. But obviously you have to get the personnel to do it. And that's not easy. So, you're telling me you think they're going to draft up front. It obviously would make sense for them to do that. They could be in a position, though, just depending on how the board falls, like if Jahdae Barron, right? If a guy like that falls to them, do they go and they add a corner? Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame was projected to be one of the top corners in this class, had a late season injury, fell. Is he a guy that they look to target? Maybe that's in the second round. Maybe they move up in the second. They even have a second round pick, the Bengals.
Yes, they do.
Maybe that's a guy that they try to target. So it really seems like, pass rusher was the premium position on defense for so long there. It's still absolutely a premium position, but it does feel like corner as a position is starting to close the gap.
So I'm going through my notes. This is one of the things I love about this time of year. I must have 50 sheets of paper spread on my desk here in my studio, trying to go over the players that I'm trying to find at a moment's notice. And one guy that I want to talk about a little bit with you, Alex, is the safety out of South Carolina who was in for a visit with the Bengals, reportedly in for a visit. And I'm trying to look him up right now. And
Nick Eamon-Warry.
Thank you. That's the one. And the reason I find that fascinating is the Bengals have struggled since Jesse Bates left for the Atlanta Falcons before the 2023 season, after the 2022 season. And to look at a guy like that, what kind of strengths could he bring to the middle of the defense deep in the secondary?
Well, first off, it's athleticism. That stands out. We saw it at the combine. He was being compared to DK Metcalf, 6'3", 220, ran a 4.38 with a 43-inch vertical. The guy is a freak athlete, period, full stop. That's the first thing that stands out. He plays to that. He's a guy that's all over the field. He plays physically. He's not somebody that is going to come into a collision wondering anything. He's coming in to lead that collision. He's coming in to inflict the damage. He's not going to let defenders bring the fight to him. He's going to bring it to them. With that athleticism, he can also help in coverage as well. It's probably a box safety, I would think, that you can line up man on tight ends when you want to do that. I think we had talked about before the opener last year, the Bengals were having trouble covering tight ends, right? So he would definitely answer that. He's a guy that can play in the run game, should be able to handle some assignments there. If they're not going to take it, the 17's a little high, but I don't know that he's going to fall that far in the second round. He might be a player that they need to grab via trade, but as we were talking about before, I think they are a trade back candidate, a good trade back candidate. But if they want to add, a real big play guy to their defense, a guy that's going to hunt the football, that's going to hunt big plays, that can be a chess piece, he would certainly fit that description.
How do you see the first four picks falling out? Do you see the Patriots staying put at 4, first of all, because of course they screwed that up toward the end of the season by beating the Buffalo Bills? And how much stock do you put in the theory that part of the reason that Gerard Mayo was let go was them dropping, I believe, from number 2 to number 4, or was it number 1 to number? It was number 1. Number 1 to number 4. That's a big drop.
It is. If that's the only reason he got fired, that's just, how do you think the guy was doing a good enough job before and now suddenly he wasn't? Was it like the straw that broke the camel's back? Maybe, but I have to imagine going into that game, they at least thought there was a good chance that they were going to move on from Gerard Mayo. I don't put a ton into that. And the new one, by the way, is that's why Joe Milton got traded, because he won that game.
I doubt that.
Vrabel even said this week, he kind of commended the guys that were out there and said, they made the most of their opportunity. And that's what this league's all about. And I liked Vrabel's answer in that regard. How do I think the top 4 are going to go? Man, it changes every day, doesn't it? Adam Schefter, it seems like every day is a new report, especially about the Browns at 2. I'll say this, and I think I'm in the minority here, as a lot of people talk about the Browns and Travis Hunter at 2, the contingent the Browns sent to Colorado for the pro day Travis Hunter's a great player. I get it. The owner's not traveling for a wide receiver. The owner is traveling for a quarterback. Now, maybe they think they can get Hunter at 2, and their intel tells them the league isn't very high on Shedeur, and they're going to try to team him up, right? They have the 34th pick in the draft, 33rd pick in the draft. Maybe it's all right. We can get Hunter at 2 and then trade. Maybe it's 17. Maybe they're willing to give the Bengals a haul, right? And then you get Shedeur at 17, and now you have those two reunited. So maybe it's that. I'm not ruling out Shedeur at 2. And if it's Shedeur at 2, I think there's a real chance the Giants would rather have Travis Hunter than Abdul Carter. Their defensive front, New York, is one of their few strengths. Travis Hunter either gives them an awesome number 2 wide receiver opposite Malik Neighbors or gives them a number 1 corner, which they need. So I think that there's a now I'm also not sleeping on the Browns taking Abdul Carter either.
Right. And the theory there, of course, is the fact you have Myles Garrett on one side and you put a guy like Abdul Carter on the other. By the way, how much stock do you put in the concern over Abdul Carter's foot injury?
None. Zero. It's especially in this draft, like, oh no, he's not going to be ready for half of minicamp. I guess we have to take a much lesser player. Like, what are we doing? Right.
No, but still, there are people who will wonder if for whatever reason he starts to drop, if that's what GMs are concerned about. And that's what obviously physicals before the draft are all about. Yeah,
there's that. And he was arrested last year. So you wonder if that comes into play. You never know with that stuff. And I don't know the full circumstance of what happened there. So I'll let people look that up, but there just was an incident. Maybe he falls a little bit. I still think, like, and you mentioned Myles Garrett too. Myles Garrett was frustrated with the organization. And there was some reporting within that he was frustrated that he, like a quarterback on offense, he wasn't getting enough help on the defensive side of the ball. So you give this guy the money, you convince him to come back. Maybe there's some sort of agreement that he's going to get more help as well. The only thing I really feel confident in at the top, I think Cam Ward is going first overall.
Yeah, very confident I see that.
I could see the Giants passing on Carter if he's on the board. Hunter, I think they would take. Shedeur, Sanders, we'll see. I could go either way on that, but I do think if Carter gets to 3, he gets to 4. I am kind of feeling like that may be the case.
And I also think had the Patriots stayed at 1, they could have gotten 2 picks in the first round, right? I mean,
or a future first,
or a future first,
which I might rather have in this draft. No, that was my take after that game. Was the Patriots losing that game did not really impact their 2025 offseason. It impacted the 2026 offseason.
Right. I buy that. 100%.
They're still going to be able to have the offseason that they need to have. And they kind of have. They still need a left tackle. But, having another first next year. And if I'm the Patriots, I'm asking for the future pick just based on the way this draft is. And I think everybody's going to do that, by the way. I think you're going to see almost no future picks move this year. And in the rare chances they do, I think they're going to be valued tremendously higher than they usually are.
Oh, go ahead.
So a team looking to move up, or if you're a team like the Bengals looking to move back, I do wonder if there's a thing where it's like, would you rather have a 4th in this draft or a 3rd in next year's draft, or even a 4th in this draft or a 4th in next year's draft? Unless you're targeting certain positions, running back, defensive tackle, which I guess the Bengals are, but I don't know. I look at it, if I'm a GM, I'm trying to get as many future picks as I can. I don't need a ton of kicks at the can in this draft. I really don't. I might strategically look for picks in this one, but the future picks should be worth a lot more this year.
He is Alex Barth, does a terrific job covering the New England Patriots, and a must follow for the 2025 NFL Draft, which is, by the way, April 24th, 25th, and 26th. In Green Bay. I want to tell you about Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Springtime is here and baseball season officially is underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks lineup, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less, of course, for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. Prize Picks invented Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your prize money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Second half of the basketball season is winding down, and the push for the playoffs is heating up on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back with Alex Barth of 98.5, the Sports Hub in Boston. And now I want to move on to maybe some of the intricacies of this draft and where teams like the Bengals or the Patriots can build depth. What are the positions you're looking at that have a bounty of really good prospects that can step in and maybe not be stars right away, but certainly contribute as depth players?
There's three, and I know at least two of them are needs for the Bengals. Running back, tight end, and defensive tackle. Defensive line sort of thing. Even edge rusher if you want to go there, but especially defensive tackle. Those are the positions. This running back class is unreal. It's unreal. We're talking here in New England about the Patriots bringing back that passing down running back James White role, right? As
Yes.
you would know it.
Yep.
And so we're talking about, what players might fit. Brashard Smith in the 6th or 7th round, Woody Marks in the 7th round. People are like, you really think a 7th round pick is going to change everything? All right, but if you go back to last year, Brashard Smith's like a 4th round pick. Woody Marks is a 4th round pick. James White, by the way, was 4th round pick. It's so loaded, and there's guys that do everything. You want a power back, you want a speed back, you want a pass catching back, you want this sort of combo. You want you name it. You describe a running back to me, and that guy is in this draft, and you probably don't need to take a back all the way at the top to get him. So this running back class is loaded. The tight end class, not quite as deep as running back. There were quite a few guys that went back to school. It might have had a chance if a few more guys came out, but good class, especially on day 3. A lot of depth, a lot of really strong project players in that one. Tight end as a position, Brock Bowers is the outlier. It's usually a position that takes 2 or 3 years for guys to get up to speed in the NFL because of how underutilized tight ends are in the college game. So if you want to get ahead of it, which the Patriots should be doing for sure, there's a bunch of tight ends you can get on day 3 that I think have a real chance to be quality starters in the NFL. Maybe not right away, but in 2 or 3 years. There are some guys at the top as well that I think can be starters. And then this defensive tackle class is just so much fun. There's so many unicorns in terms of guys that have the size, athleticism combination.
Give me your top 3.
Top 3 defensive tackles?
Yes. Because the Bengals are going to probably draft, I'm guessing, a defensive tackle in the top 4 rounds.
So my top 3, well, for the Bengals, because they're not going to have a shot at Mason Graham. I doubt they're going to move up. Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, and Walter. So Kenneth Grant from Michigan, Derek Harmon from Oregon, Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. Those guys are all first-round talents. Those guys are all, if the Bengals get any of those 3, now they win. They play a little differently. Kenneth Grant's like 330 pounds. He's a nose tackle. He can get after the passer, and he's got some wiggle, but he's like a big bully. Walter Nolan is more of that undersized, attacking, aggressive defensive tackle kind of pass rush specialist. And Derek Harmon somewhere in the middle. He's not so big that it's a plus. He's like 310. He's not so athletic that it's rare, but he's just a really solid player. Later on, I like Darius Alexander from Toledo, Alfred Collins from Texas. The guy I really like, now he's a true project. And he's gone way down draft boards as this process has gone, but I can't quit him, Trags. And that's Deion Walker from Kentucky. Deion Walker is a weird player. You don't see a ton of prospects with the
true unicorn
he has. And it's not even necessarily all positive. So he's 6'7", 331. And I think he probably weighs more than that. I think he dropped some weight for the combine. He was played at 345 in college. So 6'7", 340. He's a pure finesse player. Like, he doesn't play with power. He'll get pushed back. He'll get bullied at times, but he's got a great swim move. His footwork's excellent. Kentucky would play him, Trags, standing up on the edge. This guy was 340, 6'7", 340, essentially playing as an outside linebacker hitting spin moves. So what do you do with that, right? Do you try to get his power game fixed and play him in the middle? He's not going to stand up in the NFL, but
Right.
like, do you try to turn him into like a supersized defensive end? I don't know. You ask 10 teams, you might get 10 different answers on what the development path would be for him. But the physical traits are so rare. You can't, like, I can't help but look and be like, man, if somebody gets it right with him, he's going to be unbelievable.
Okay. Could the best interior offensive lineman drop to the Bengals at 17? And if they do, and if it does, what do you think the chances? I think the chances are very good if that happens. And he's the best player among 3 or 4 players on the board. The Bengals need a guard. I think that's been well documented, and we haven't talked about that. Not a sexy position, but the Bengals need at least one projected starting guard out of this draft class. And who would that be? If you had your choice of the best interior offensive lineman on the board, who would it be?
Well, this is a tricky question. I know you asked that like you want a quick answer, but it's a tricky question because, and you're talking about in the first round, like, do they see Kelvin Banks as a guard? Right? I think Kelvin Banks could get to 17 if they're willing to draft him outright as a guard. I think that's possible. The other guys might, like the true guards, might be more of a reach, but if that's who they want, and look, you have the Seahawks sitting there at 22, the Texans sitting there at 25. Those are both guard teams. So if you really want an elite guard at the top of the draft, you might have to get aggressive. I personally like Tyler Booker from Alabama. He's played right guard his whole career. He had a bad combine. He had a really bad combine, and that's going to scare teams. He's one of these players that I look at, and sometimes I look at a bad combine. It worries me. I'm not saying it's nothing, but the Rams have had a ton of success with this. Guys like Puka Nacua, Cam Kitchens, who did not test well at the combine, but they just look at the tape. Can this guy play? Tyler Booker is incredibly strong. He's incredibly violent. He's a very smart football player. He's experienced. Like he looks like an NFL player, as a lot of guys from Alabama tend to do. He looks like an NFL player. I'm a big fan of Tyler Booker. The other guy you talk about in the first round is Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. He's a converted left tackle. He's going to move inside due to his arm length. He might even be able to play some center if the Bengals. Well, they have Ted Karras, so they should be good there. And
they also have Matt Lee. But I wouldn't dismiss them taking a center if they project him as a first/second round talent.
So, well, he's primarily a guard, but some teams may see the value in that, like multi-positional ability. But he's a little more. He's not as big as Booker, but he's more agile. He's more crafty. He's a little more technically sound. Those would be the two guys if the Bengals are going guard at 17. I think the real value for guards in this draft is the third round.
Third round, huh?
Yeah. A guy like Marcus LeBeau, Tate Ratledge, those sorts of guys.
So the Bengals in this draft, they have picks in each of the first 6 rounds and not a 7th round pick. So that's how it lines up for the Bengals. They did not get a comp draft due to free agency this particular year. So that hurts them a little bit. They used all 10 of their draft picks, of course, last year, and we'll see how that turns out. The Patriots, when they go into this draft, are they, and I think we addressed this a little bit earlier, but do you think that they are looking at finally finding their stud wide receiver of the future for their quarterback?
I think they'd love to. Mike Vrabel talked at the combine about how hard it is to get that kind of player, especially if you don't draft them. These guys never hit free agency. When they get traded, it's rare. Cincinnati knows that. Like, they'll keep. Well,
that's why the
building,
Bengals did what they did. That's
as
exactly
they should have.
Right, Alex.
So look, I think they'd love to. Short of Travis Hunter, is that player there? This is not a good wide receiver draft class in the top 50, 60 picks. There's some interesting players with upside that you can take a flyer on later on, but I don't know that they're like, you're kind of trying to find a diamond in the rough at that point. Tet McMillan's the one guy, and he's been comped to T. Higgins quite a bit. But in a league where athleticism has become more and more of a premium over technical skill at the wide receiver position, is a guy that's all technique and no athleticism going to go that high in the draft? And are they going to believe that much in him? I don't know. So I think they would love to, but, I think they would also love to draft the next Jonathan Ogden. Is that guy there? Probably not. There is no real, true, definitive franchise left tackle. So they're going to have to work with what they work with, and I think tackle is probably going to get the priority there.
My feeling on the draft is you always have to play to the strength of the draft and not go outside of that, because when you do go outside of that, and the worst word on any night of the draft, particularly the first and second nights of the draft, rounds 1 through 3, reach. That is a 4-letter word to NFL executives, right? When you hear the word reach and you're like, yeah, we really like what he could be, that's where I think a lot of football executives, and rightfully so, get scared.
Yes, but some of that's also playing the board, and that's true going into the draft and during the draft itself. For instance, as the Patriots sit here, you hear a lot of fans, assuming Carter and Hunter are gone, well, Will Campbell he's not a 4th overall pick kind of player. Tet McMillan isn't really a 4th overall pick kind of player. Tyler Warren, Ashton Jeanty, you're not taking these positions 4th overall. Well, you can't tell Roger Goodell, just pencil us in for next year. We don't like any of these guys at 4. You could try to trade back, but there's no value for you. Why is somebody else flying up the board, right? So you have to take somebody. And I do think, there's going to be players that go at the top of this draft that don't typically go in those sorts of slots, but there is nobody else, right? There is that no clear-cut top 5 kind of player if Jeanty and Carter are gone. At the same time, I use last year as an example. Individually, some of the tackles went a round or more earlier than was expected. But why did that happen? Because they were all going around or more earlier than expected, and teams needed tackles, and there's not enough tackles in the league. So it was either take them now or you're not going to get a tackle at all. So the Patriots last year kind of did the opposite of what you said, where they didn't take any tackles when they had their chance because they maybe weren't graded where the Patriots had them. And now you get to the point where you're ready to take a tackle. Oh, and they're all gone because they all went earlier because it's economics, right? The market adjusted. So there is you don't want to be reaching on project players early in the draft. I'm with you on that. But I hate it when people say, well, this player was projected at 120 and they took him at 70. That's a reach. Well, if the 4 players ranked ahead of him at the position all went 20 to 30 picks earlier than they were supposed to go, it's not a reach anymore. We were wrong in projecting, and the market showed that position as a whole was more valuable than we initially thought.
That is why I have you on this podcast. It is, you obviously love this time of year. You're a draftnik, if I can call you that, Alex. You are a draftnik. And
appreciate
anybody who wants a good laugh, okay, should go on YouTube and search for Alex Barth. And how would they do this? Search for Alex Barth, NFL Draft, Felger and Maz, right? And they would probably
that'll come up. Felger and Maz big board. That's back next week.
It is the Felger and Maz big board, where they quiz Alex Barth on random draft prospects in this year's NFL draft. I find it hilarious, and you do an incredible job, obviously, of knowing just
thank you
random players who might go in the 4th or 5th or 6th round, but you got them down for the most part. Now, there are hits and misses. Everybody is not perfect. I understand that, Alex, but still, I think you do a really, really good job. How much time have you spent on the draft? Like, give it to me in hours per day.
I mean, like officially or unofficially, when I'm watching college football in the fall, like that's all information gathering, right? Going back to that, this time of year, it's all day, every day. Like this time of year, it's what I'm working on, especially these last few weeks. You mentioned that we're kind of wrapping up the process here, and the 30 days are coming. The 30 visits are coming to an end. We're done with pro days. This is a weird 2 weeks. This is like in draft world, the week between Christmas and New Year's where nobody knows what the hell is going on because we still have 2.5 weeks to talk about this, but we're getting zero new information. So it's all just thoughts rattling around in your head and you're driving yourself nuts where Jack in The Shining walking around the hotel for these next 2.5 weeks. So, but this time of year, it's pretty constant. It's pretty much all day. That pretty much starts at pretty much from free agency to the draft. It's a solo focus. I'll make a point to watch the Red Sox when I can. But besides that, it's all draft. I had a buddy here this weekend and we were hanging out. I was still kind of running through a mock draft in my head while we were out grabbing drinks.
So tell the audience where they can follow you, where they can find your latest content online.
Yeah, 985thesportshub.com. We actually have a new website dropping tomorrow. Totally reformatted. It's going to be sleek and clean. Hopefully, I actually haven't seen it yet, but I'm told it's going to be great. 985thesportshub.com. You can check out the Catch 22 podcast on Patriots.com with myself and Evan Lazar.
One of my faves.
Talk there. Yep. and Patriots Beat on CLNS.
All right. Here's Alex Barth, does a tremendous job, as he just outlined the number of people he works for, but primarily covering the Patriots and the NFL and the NFL Draft 2025 for 985thesportshub.com. Be sure to follow his content leading up to and throughout the NFL Draft there. My name is Mike Petralia Trags, and I want to thank our great sponsors and great friends. Of course, that would be Prize Picks and the Game Time app. Until next week, you know how it goes. Keep that jungle roaring.